Besides the presidential race, Ohioans will be treated to what's expected to be a feisty Senate showdown between incumbent Sherrod Brown and State Treasurer Josh Mandel. A lot of money is being raised and spent in this one. The winner could determine who controls the U.S. Senate next January. Joining us now, Ohio Senior Senator Sherrod Brown. Senator, as always, good to see you.
Good to be back. Thanks.
Let me ask you first. There are signs here of an economic recovery. A, has it taken too long? And B, is it real? Is it going to stick around?
No, it's real. You go back 3 years ago, we were losing 800,000 jobs a month when the president took office. The economy for that over that year period was contracting, I believe, 8%. So that's where you start from. We have now had 21 months. Oh, and one more point. There had been a decline in manufacturing jobs in Ohio and across the country every year from 1997 up into 2010, so more than 12 years of decline, yearly decline in manufacturing jobs. We have seen since around that time, a little bit after that, we've seen now 21 consecutive months of manufacturing job growth in Ohio and nationally, and job growth overall. It's not enough. It's the right direction. We're beginning to do this right. The president's economic program has moved us forward.
Are people feeling it?
Well, some are, because there are new manufacturing jobs and all the jobs that grow out of the sort of multiplier effect of manufacturing. But people aren't feeling it enough, and people are still frustrated. They're still anxious. But people are also smart enough not to want to go back to those policies that the opposing presidential candidates are advocating: more tax cuts, more deregulation. That's what got us into this mess. And what we're doing, from the auto rescue to the highway bill to the payroll tax cut, is moving us forward. That's clearly the direction to go in.
How important was the auto rescue? Your opponent won't say whether he would have voted for or against that. Looking back, would there have been a different way to do that, or did that truly save the auto industry?
Well, it saved the auto industry, and you talk to almost any analyst about it. The auto industry in Ohio is our major industry. We have many other things. Healthcare, particularly in Central Ohio, is so important, and everywhere healthcare is. But if we had done what Governor Romney said, which is just let the auto industry go into bankruptcy — he uses the word structured, whatever that means technically in this situation — but there was no way to finance it. No company, including his Bain Capital — he was gone by then — but no financial people would have financed them out of bankruptcy through that structured bankruptcy. It had to be the government investment. The government's pulling its investment away. We're seeing a couple things. We're seeing tens of thousands of jobs in Ohio, not just the auto assembly companies, and that includes Honda, because Honda supported the rescue also in the thousands of jobs there. It also includes all the suppliers. And for instance, in Toledo, the Wrangler, which is assembled at the Toledo Jeep plant, prior to the auto rescue, only 50% of the Wrangler was domestic sourced, meaning the supply components came from U.S. companies. Today, it's 75%. So not only are we building more cars here, the supply chain feeding into it is many, many more American jobs and many, many more Ohio jobs.
Let's talk kind of the politics of all of this as we get closer post Super Tuesday and now look ahead to the fall. U.S. Chamber of Commerce has been beating you up for months now on ads that they've been running on Ohio television, targeting you. And I think it's Club for Growth lists you sort of at the 0% when it comes to business issues. Are you concerned? Well, let me ask you first. Is it fair that you're being targeted as sort of this anti-business senator? And is that something that you worry about as you look ahead to November?
Well, I don't make an issue of who's doing this. I know it's oil companies. I know it's out-of-state insurance companies. It's companies that have outsourced jobs that like that trade policy that are attacking me. They're attacking me because, in part, I've stood up to the Chinese on the whole issue of currency. My legislation, which I authored, Senator Portman supported, it's got bipartisan support, was the largest job-creating bill that the Senate passed last year, that will level the field on currency. It will level the field for American manufacturing. The big companies that tend to run the Chamber of Commerce are the big companies that outsource jobs to China, and they don't like that position. And I've got a very good business record, and you can talk to a whole lot of employers, CEOs, managers in Columbus and Cleveland and Cincinnati, because I've worked with them in ways that they've never had a U.S.
So you're not
senator
surprised by it?
I'm not surprised. The U.S. Chamber is a political organization. It's a Republican political organization. They've spent $4 million against me, more than any state in the country. It's Karl Rove and is George Bush. I don't want to make this about a former president, but the guy running all this is George Bush's top political guy. I'm a target. I can live with that. I'm sure that will help my opponent. $4 million in negative ads doesn't. And my wife and I, one night, Friday night, a couple weeks ago, we were sitting home watching like 2 hours of TV, and we saw the ads 4 times. And you know, it's
well, and that's why I brought it up, because I mean, I think everybody has seen it.
That's the way it goes, and I think people are sick of them. I don't think we'll leave it. People believe it. I think they know this is all out-of-state oil money and money that drug companies, whoever does these kinds of ads.
If you had the redo of the healthcare vote, I mean, as you think back on it now, clearly Ohioans sent Washington some kind of message last November when Issue 3 overwhelmingly was approved, which basically said the state should opt out of this federal health care law. As you look back, was that handled in the right way? Would you redo anything on that, and do you expect that to be an issue this
We
November?
tried to be bipartisan. We included, I sat on the committee that
it
helped
didn't
write
end up
the bill.
being bipartisan.
Yeah, well, it didn't end up that way because we accepted 150 Republican amendments in the course of that legislation. And just in the committee I was on that wrote maybe half the bill. And I know it's a political issue, but I think that when you look at some of the things this bill does, if you're 23 years old, you can stay on your parents' health plan. If you have a job without insurance, every senior can get an annual checkup without a copay or deductible. Every senior, when prescribed by their doctor, when ordered by their doctor. If you have a pre-existing condition, you can join and can't get insurance. You can join a high-risk pool and actually get insurance.
Popular
there
things
are so many specific things in this. Consumer protections. If you have a child with some pre-existing condition, the insurance companies can no longer deny your family coverage.
What happens if the Supreme Court pulls the plug on this?
I don't think they will. I don't think they will.
Expect it to be like a 5-4 decision?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be a bigger decision than that. I think that, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I think if you look at the history of the Commerce Clause and some of these, some of the precedent here, that they will not overrule. A very conservative Republican-appointed judge in Ohio, Jeffrey Sutton, in his lower court decision said this should be upheld. So I don't see that happening.
Let me talk to me about your taxes. This is probably going to be the subject of a 30-second spot in the fall. Delinquent taxes in Washington, D.C. It's something I think also happened in 2006, 2007. But how will you respond to that as the other side begins to attack you on if a U.S. senator isn't paying his taxes, who's paying their taxes?
Well, I am paying my taxes. I disclose my tax returns. I have a little apartment in Washington, 400 square feet. I've had it for the time I've been there. A couple of times I didn't get my tax bill, or I put it aside. I paid it with penalties. I've never, ever done anything improper.
Is this the type of thing where you go home and you're like, ugh, because you know that this is going to be political fodder?
I know that my opponent has a reputation. I'm not going to talk about him much here today, but he has a reputation of very nasty ads. He's done that. That's how he's gotten ahead in politics, and this is as far as I'll go with this. But I know that he will do things like that, because when it's a contrast on the issues, when you contrast this on the issues, on job creation, on doing your job right, on fulfilling your duties in office, on a whole host of consumer issues and healthcare and education, the public's I'm exactly where the public is, and he's pretty far afield out there. He's sort of the mix of Rick Santorum on social issues and Mitt Romney on tax cuts for the rich, and continuing to be out of touch with this country.
30 seconds. You ready for this race in the fall? How negative do you think it will get?
I think we know of my opponent's campaigns have always been highly personal, partisan, and negative, and we know that they've already spent $4 million against me in negative. But I'm going to run. My campaign's about issues. I've always been elected by making the contrast. Here's where I stand. Here's what my opponent does. But mostly, I'm doing my job as a senator in the next 8 months, and I've done it for 5+ years, and I think the voters will ratify the job I've done. I know that people are anxious because the economy's not what we want it to be, but we're going in the right direction. We've got to continue.
Senator Sherrod Brown, as
Good
always.
to be back.
Thank
Thanks.
you. See you soon.